Oh, hello everybody. Look at the stock market. Here, my crystal ball. The stock market is pretty choppy right now. There is the Ebola virus in Africa. There is new war against IS in Syria and Iraq, and you have the problems in Russia and the Ukraine. There's a war. And in Hong Kong are protests. All those problems, all those conflicts are not interconnected. There's no direct connection between those. So the Fed, I went to a talk with the Fed. It was organized by Bloomberg, the financial company Bloomberg. And so the Fed chief of New York, his name is Dudley, William Dudley, he said he's not worried with all these conflicts because they are not interconnected, but he's worried a bit with the strength of the dollar that makes the exports of the US more difficult, and he assumes that the export will shrink because the demand will go lower, and overall he said the world economy is not doing that greatly. But he didn't sound like very nervous, but he didn't sound very optimistic as well, so in between. But whatever, as a long-term investor, you don't care what happens on the whole planet. You look like Warren Buffett. He looks at a single company. He picks a company. He looks at it. He doesn't care if there's a war in Iraq or Syria or if there's a conflict. He looks, what is the company producing? What is the company selling? Like Procter & Gamble or so on, or a car dealership. And then his thought is, what is the company doing the next 5 or 10 years? And that is all what is important to him. And then he looks at the price he has to pay, and that's all. He doesn't care about all these other things. Of course he's reading international news, but he does not get impacted by those things. And it is a very interesting way, and I try to copy it. I try to take the ideas. So I order hundreds of annual reports of companies, of corporations, and I go through and I look, what is the company producing, how are their revenues, how are their earnings, how is the cash flow statement, what do they pay based on dividends, how much stocks do they buy by share buybacks, and how do they do acquisitions, how do they deal with problems, how honest are they. You pretty much can tell a lot when you read those reports. And then you look at the revenues and so on, and then you can decide how much you want to pay for the company. And I write down the price into the annual report, and then I compare what the stock market is actually saying, what is fair, what is the stock market paying for it. And then you will be surprised what kind of a difference it is sometimes. And very rarely I really find a company, what I would say, that is cheap. But the trick is, what people like Buffett do is they first look at the company, then they decide what they would like to pay. Usually a company that is not growing crazy, a pretty much strong company, you can pay like 1 times revenues, or 1.2 times, or maybe even 1.5 times revenue. Of course it's different. There are so many sectors, it depends on the margins and so on, but as a general rule of thumb, you take 1 times revenue and you look, or you take 12 times earnings, net earnings, or 13 times, again it depends how stable it is. And then you compare that with the stock market. It's sometimes a huge difference. The stock market is more euphoric, it's more optimistic. And then you compare those two and you will decide, no, that's not what I wanted to pay, so you stay away. Also, a very important tool is, what will the company be around, what would they do, how do they do, how will they perform in 5, 10 or 15 years. If you can answer that, if you're pretty optimistic, they will do very fine in 10 or 15 years. And it's a good way to invest when the price is fair, of course. So that's all for today. Bye.